Welcome back. Well, still discussing the Student Loan Act 2024 recently signed by President Bola Tinubu, and now being joined on the program by Oriyomi Ogunwale, who is the team lead at DEJI Planner. Thank you very much, Oriyomi, for joining us on the program. We have talked about the Student Loan Act before, and that was when the first act now was passed, and now we have the new act, so to speak, so the reenactment of the act. You look at the new act, you look at the new initiative. What's your take on it?
I think we still have to look for more information from the federal government.
Okay,
in terms of
what particularly?
We need to be careful of the fact that we don't sensationalize a student loan bill. And why do I say that? Is the fact that we've been having this discussion since last year. It was first signed in June of last year to take off by September, and then it has been postponed. I think this should be the fourth time, and then we still keep having issues. Now, what they tried to do from the last act that was signed last year was that, you see, there were parents' loan history being included.
But that has now been rectified. That has now been rectified. That has now been rectified in the current act. So that has been taken care of. Of course, there's no need to look at the parents' loan history in granting loans to applicants.
Exactly. So those things have been taken care of, but there's still other issues that we still need to look at. When you look at the press release from the State House, you begin to see that they are still talking about how they are going to form the board, which is a Nigeria Education Loan Fund, the board for that. They are now saying it's going to be registered as a corporate body. So the director has not been announced. The board of directors have not been announced. The trustees, the different officials are going to form this fund have not been announced. So I still see a situation where maybe next month or upper month again, we're going to be hearing from the government saying, oh, the Student Loan Act, this is the next thing that we want to do. I'm just of the opinion that this is just generating too much media buzz. We have not seen the website yet. The government is saying the implementation date for this act, for example, is not yet in place yet. So if you don't have details like that even on board, then you begin to understand what are we really even talking about concerning this. Because don't let us forget that the whole idea around the Student Loan Act is that students in tertiary institutions can actually have access to it. That is the whole goal of all this. So if students are not having access to this loan, the platform is not ready, the process has not started, then when do we begin to see the implementation?
So essentially what you're saying is that by now, this thing should have been up and running.
Exactly. So that those are the big issues. These were mistakes from the government from the get-go. These are things that should have been figured out. When you announce an act like this, then the agency that will be involved, the officials that will be involved, the people, what are they trying to achieve? And then you begin to look at how realistic is this. So for me, like one of those things that I continue to look at now is the issues have not been addressed. And we keep getting this media buzz from time to time about student loan. And for me, it's not what I want to see anymore. I want to see students having access to this loan that the government has been touting that it wants to do. We are going to be 1 year into the government, and then nothing has actually been in fruition yet for students.
One of the concerns that my earlier guest raises how to ensure fairness in the distribution of this loan so that you don't have a situation where a particular part of the country benefits more and all of that. And of course, the new act, of course, establishes a justice and fairness provision now that mandates the board to ensure a minimum national spread of loans approved and disbursed in each financial year. But do you think that will be a difficulty, sort of, to ensure that there's a national spread now in the disbursements of this loan so that, you know, it's not weighted to one sector, one section of the country?
I think for me, like my earlier point, and for me, like one of those things that we want to work to advocate for, even our edu planner, is to advocate for the education sector plan, which actually shows what the government is trying to do in terms of addressing education access in Nigeria, quality and system strengthening. And then if we had had this type of conversation, if this had been actually factored out in the education sector plan, for example, then we should not be having this discussion. Now, we are supposed to have, what is the vision? The vision is to increase access. But access for what? What type of students are we addressing? As we speak now, if you look at details of the Student Loan Act, there is no target to say this is the number of students we're targeting, right? And when you don't have a target, then you cannot say, if we are saying, oh, we want to achieve 200,000 students in the first year of the Student Loan Act, then we can then say this is the total amount that should be targeted, which is actually not even specified yet. And as we speak now, there is no implementation date, the date that the implementation wants to start. So I believe that until these questions are asked, then like what your guest said earlier, will then be another issue, because how do we measure to say, if we know the total, you want to give 200,000 students, this is just an assumption, 200,000 students, the student loan in, say, 2024 to 2025, for example, within 1 year, then you can then look at the spread. Okay, this is the number that South-South got, this is the number that South-East got, this is the number that the North-West got, this is the number that the North-Central is getting. Then you can look at the spread and say, these are the numbers. And then maybe you can then say, oh, for each region, we are going to do 50,000, right? Then when it's exceeding 50,000 in a particular region, you know it's no longer is going beyond the quota for that region. So I think once these things are well fleshed out, once these things have the necessary performance indicators, I think it's going to be easy to track. But the fact that the government is still putting out a loan act that it has changed 4 times, the loan act was signed last year, 2023. And before its implementation at all, they've repealed the first one and they are signing another one the next year. And still, there are no specific details about. I don't know if we are going to have the Student Loan Act in 2024. Because we still have to look at the platform. The platform itself. We need to be functional. We get the bottlenecks when students start using, maybe they want to start application. You know, those all processes, we've not even figured it out yet. And this is the first announcement from this administration when it got into office. And then you can look at by May, we are going to have 1 year in office, which is next month. And then next month in office, 1 year in office, what you are saying now is the first policy announcement has not even kickstarted at all.
All right.
So those are big issues.
But let me ask you one final question, because we haven't got time. Do you have any concerns at all about the issue of repayment? Because repayment is very key to the sustenance of this initiative. If people take and they do not pay back, it's only normal that you know, the initiative will die a natural death. Do you have concerns?
Nigeria has done the education bank before now. In the 80s, 90s, there was what we call the education bank, which is actually designed around something like the Student Loan Act. And then it became defunct eventually because of this issue you just raised, which is the repayment of the loan. One of those things that, for me, like what I'm looking forward to is to get the full document, the full PDF of the 2024, the repealed one, to see the full PDF, to see what is the government actually saying in that loan act. But when you look at how the government wants to pursue in terms of repayment, you see it has not figured out how it wants to attract the loan back. But you know how we implement policies in Nigeria is when we get to that.
No, but the government has said, so, you know, those who take the loan can then begin to pay back after 2 years after their national service.
How feasible is that?
And that they can actually, yeah, that
the first time I saw that, when I first time, we have to look at the underemployment and unemployment rates in Nigeria. Do you understand? So it's education is something that is, you cannot look at it from one angle only. It has to be holistic. Where are the industries that are going to absorb these people when they graduate? And those are the gaps that you see in this policy at the moment. And if these things are not addressed now, just like you said earlier, how sustainable is the student loan act in Nigeria? Right. So those are the big issues. But I believe as time goes on, we'll continue to figure it out.
All right. Oriyomi Ogunwale, team lead at DEJI Planner, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. That's it on the program. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.